Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you're an entrepreneur. Yes, you heard me right. Entrepreneur, page, stage, entrepreneur all go together. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you will have some published material, whether it be a solo book, a chapter in an anthology, blog. You're definitely on socials, aren't you? What's that if it's not published work? Tick the author slot. Go you. But what about the speaker business? If I've just blown your brains out with my definition of author, come about with this one for speaker. A lot of people go to me, I can't do public speaking. I would never be able to do that. What's your definition of public speaking? Every time you open your mouth, you are speaking in public, are you not? So this could be an on-stage, the traditional platform. If that's too much, fair enough, put that to one side for now. Networking meetings. As an entrepreneur, you will be going to networking meetings. That's a stage. If you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can get on a podcast like this. That's a stage. Virtual summits, those are stages as well. Have I expanded your horizons a little on this one? I trust I have. Page, stage, entrepreneur, welcome. Anyway, let's get down to business. I have the joy and pleasure of introducing you today to a lady called Heneka. Now, Heneka is based in Jamaica, somewhere I have yet to go. And this lady is an absolute whiz with podcasts. I mentioned podcast as being a platform, a stage. You can be a guest, is what I'm after, to get your message out there. You can also be a host and have your own platform. And that is what I feel we're going to be discussing in a bit more detail today. Heneka, you know yourself better than I do. Give us an introduction. Give us an idea of who you are and how you got to be where you are today.
Wendy, you are such a gem. So thank you for having me here. I just love you and love what you stand for, your travels, all of these things. So who am I? Heneka Watkis-Porter. I'm the Jamaican podcast queen. Of course, it's fair to say Caribbean. And why not global podcast queen, right? I started podcasting 3 years ago, in 2017. Here I am 7 years later at the time of airing. And I am coaching persons to podcast. I've written a book on podcasting, Podcast Power, the quick start guide to launching and leveling up your brand. I produce podcasts for organizations. I'm an international speaker. Of course, I'm an author. I am a coach, a mentor, and so many other things, right? I'm an aunt to some lovely nieces and nephews. That's so important. And I just love to interact with people. I love podcasting. How did I get to where I'm at? Oh my gosh, it was a journey, They often say an overnight success, and overnight success is 10 years in the making. Well, I'm 46 years old now, so go figure, right? So I started entrepreneurship in 2007. I have a clothing brand called Patwa Apparel, and little by little, I recognized, because I came from humble beginnings, I recognized that person was so interested in figuring out, okay, how did you do this? How did you do that? And they wanted to hear my story. And they know that my story is not one of affluence, right? But now I'm influencing. I didn't have the color of connection, I like to say, or the surname that would connect you to some open doors. But I was able to wing my way through things and learning as I go along and grow along too. So that's my journey in a nutshell to entrepreneurship. Started that in 2017. And then I recognized, but hey, wait a minute. I want to touch people all over the globe. And so now my podcast reaches people in over 140 countries. I'm speaking to people all over the world. I've had the likes of Richard Branson, Les Brown, Seth Godin, Lisa Nichols, etc., interfacing with these amazing folks and other folks that you probably don't know their names, but they are doing amazingly well to have been on the Entrepreneurial You podcast. So that's my journey. In addition to, of course, I said being a proud aunt to lovely nieces and nephews, I'm also a mentor. I run a social enterprise called Grace to Grow. And that is all about empowering women to come out of the circumstances that they often find themselves in, one of despondency, one of, oh my gosh, woe is me, my life is a mess, to bring them to a point of recognizing that, hey, I'm worthy, I'm powerful, I'm amazing, I'm a star, I'm enough. Yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. That was a whistle-stop tour through your progress. Amazing. Now, Heneka, what was the name of your podcast? Can you say it nice and slowly for us?
Sure. The podcast is The Entrepreneurial You.
The Entrepreneurial You. Brilliant.
Yes.
And is that an audio only? Is it an audio and visual production?
So it is, I'm an audio first. I know a lot of people are like coming at me because, hey, you need to be doing videos. I'm an audio first. I'm one of those traditional persons who like to pick up a book and turn its pages. Similarly, I am an audio first person when it comes on to podcasts, because that's how it was created to, to intimately, persons intimately listen to you when they're going about doing their chores, doing whatever. Nonetheless, though, I also have it on YouTube. Some of those are live videos with me, because there's also the TV version of this podcast. And when I do have sponsors on board to have the, produce the TV show, because a lot more go into it than when I'm doing just the audio. When I do that, I have the video, lovely produced videos and stuff, and they are on YouTube, but I also have the RSS feed on. So the audio versions are there as well, with the cover art. So technically it's a pause video is what I call it, but it's a video nonetheless. So it's there on YouTube. The RSS feed is there, but you're not necessarily seeing, the live all the time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. This podcast for your listeners who are tuning into this, I set up this podcast in April this year, and it will remain video first and foremost, because my background is in speech pathology, and I know the power of the non-verbals. Ultimately, down the track, we probably will go into an audio version as well, but for now, we're going visual as well.
Yeah. Kudos to you, power to you.
Well, I mean, the other thing was, I'm part of my skill set is I was the head speaker coach at TEDx University of Western Australia up until last year, because, hey, I'm traveling now. But one of our speakers came on and said, I'm profoundly deaf. I need to be able to see what you're saying. I have a cochlear implant. I can hear the vibrations, but I still rely on lip reading. And I've never forgotten that, and thought, right, from an inclusive perspective, I'm definitely going to keep it on the visual as well. To be fair,
Powerful.
if it was captioned, it would be even better. But hey, we're starting in that direction. So please don't hear any criticism in that. That's giving you the parameters of why I'm doing it video first.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beauty of what we do, because we get to choose based on how informed we are, number one, based on our preferences, number two, and also based on the audience that we serve. So the point that we make here, clearly, I hope it's not missed on our audience, is that there is no one right or wrong way as it relates to podcasting. It all comes down to preferences, because a lot of what podcasting is about, it is about the indie producer. It's not those, we are, the industry seeing an influx of these large media houses, media companies coming in and trying to run the show. But predominantly, podcasting is about the little indie producer who loves to do this because they like it. It's a hobby for them. It's not necessarily, although it can be both, but it's not necessarily about making the money. It's about doing something that they like and love to do. So there is no right or wrong way. It all boils down to preferences, right? Some people love to go to the beach. Some persons love to go to the river. Some people like hiking. Some people never be caught outdoors, It all comes down to a matter of preference.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. And I love the analogy that you were giving there in terms of what we all like. So beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to take you back in time. When did you first start writing? And I don't mean picking up a pen and going A, B, C. We were all roughly the same age at that point. But when did it dawn on you that there was some influence in your writing, whether it be journaling, whether it be creative writing at school? Cast your mind back. How long have you been writing?
Wendy, I love this question because it is forcing me to go back beyond, because usually when that question is asked, and particularly being asked of authors, it is asked within the context of when do you start writing a book, right? But how you've asked the question, it's taking me back to when I just started writing for the Jamaica Observer. Yeah, I remember signing up almost 20 years ago, signing up for a course I used to see advertised in one of our major newspapers over and over and over again. And I remember before online was a thing, it was all newspapers. And I remember when I used to read a newspaper regularly, I seeing this ad, and it caught my eye because inside of me there was an interest to write, and it caught my attention. And I remember seeing somebody from Jamaica. This is a UK course, right? I still have the material right here looking in my office now. And so I saw somebody from Jamaica giving a testimonial about the program. And I called her up. She was one of our very prominent newspapers, the Jamaica Observer, and she is still with that publication today, right? And this is almost 20 years ago. And I called her up and I said, hey, tell me about the course and what are your thoughts? And she sang the praises of the course. And she says the beauty about it, which they also state in the ad, is that you get to make back your money. So they insist on you writing to make back your money from the course. And so I approached her. I said, hey, you have the segment in the paper section called Bookends. I want to write for it. And I wrote my first piece called, it was called On Being Black. And I wrote about the whole, just love of being my blackness and being a Black person and Marcus. And just, it was such a lovely, looking back, I'm like, I don't write like that anymore. It was really good piece. And with very little amount of editing she did, it was accepted. Then I remember writing a piece called The Battle of the Sexes. I'm talking about, men versus women. I remember writing a piece on cult versus culture. Is it a cult? The Rastafarianism, is it cult? Is it a part of our culture? I remember writing another piece called Memoirs of a Disaster. And that was my experience talking about Hurricane Gilbert, which was my very first experience at 11 years old, experiencing 1988, experiencing a hurricane of a very devastating magnitude, lost electricity for weeks, all of these things. And I remember it gave me such joy to write. And it wasn't up until fast track to last year when I actually finished that course. I started it a couple of times. This is almost 20 years ago, right? And it wasn't until last year I reached out to them towards the latter part of the previous year, which is at the end of 2022. And I said, hey, I know I've asked for extension before, because they always say, this is a self-paced course. You can do this within your own time, Of course, I took self-paced too literally, right? And paced myself out of it. And so it wasn't until I reached out to them toward the end of 2022 and said, listen, I really want to finish this thing that I started, and say, you know what? Since I'm loving what you're doing, because I did update them on what I've moved on to do, publishing books, etc., etc. Well, congratulations on all the things that you've done. Too much time has elapsed, so here's what we're going to do for you. You can buy an extension. So I don't remember how much more pounds I paid, so I could finish the course. And I finished the course last year, got my certificate, and wow.
And you have way earned your money back.
Way earned my money back, because I used to contribute regularly to Bookends, with Sharon Leach, who is still at the Jamaica Observer. And when I recognized that the articles, I was spending so much time on the essay type articles, I began to do photo stories, because I realized photo stories took way less effort and I got more money. But so I stopped writing essays and started doing photo stories. So I still have today, I've laminated copies of all of those publications that I had in the newspaper.
So you have got copies of all of those?
I have them. I have, I mean, if I stepped away a couple of feet from where I'm sitting right now and just grab them, I can show you like, hey, these are my works.
Sounds like a book in the making, don't you think?
Listen, I thought about that too.
Not just a pretty face. I've been doing this a while. So how old were you when you started contributing to the Jamaica Observer?
Okay, so let's call it about 20 years ago. So I was about was in my mid-20s. So because I'm 46 years old now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did you journal as a child / teenager?
I think every once in a while I had a little thing, let me tell you what it was. It wasn't even journal, those roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you kind of thing. I used to have a
Love it.
Every stupid teenager has one of those.
We had, I mean, growing up in the UK, the primary school that I went to insisted that we did a diary every day. And it was creative writing as such, but we had to put in at least one sentence. And it was usually about something we'd experienced in the last 24 hours. It was factual. There was no expectation that you would put any feeling in it.
Yeah.
So when I came to journaling as an adult, this isn't just writing a diary entry, is it? No. Ooh. And things grew from there. So that's why I was asking, because so many people have started their creative writing, and that's also for business books. Because you need to get your message out in a way that, as we mentioned with the podcast to start with, is going to make sense to your audience, is going to set them alight, and they're going to take notice and action on what you've put down on paper. So love it. Thank you very much for sharing your writing journey.
You're welcome.
Book about podcasts came out in 2019, am I right?
2019? That's 2019 it was, or 2020? 2020.
During the
yeah, because I remember, let me tell you why it's 2020, because towards the end of 2019, and even back up, let me just quickly say too, I became a big journaler. So following on your journaling conversation, I became a big journaler in my latter years of my life. So I kept writing. I have tons and tons of journals in my office now. Some very deep personal stuff, all kind of things, my faith journey, everything. Right. I started writing it towards the end of 2019. I kept putting it off. I know I wasn't worried about it because I knew I had content, because I was blogging about podcasting. I had some videos about it and stuff, right? And so I started in 2019, but kind of just lethargically going through the motion in writing the book, as many authors find themselves doing from time to time. And in 2020, however, I think I had 3 speaking engagements that were confirmed towards the end of 2019 for 2020. And one of them, and they were major, they were in the US, they were all tech events. And one of them, big opportunity, ATD. I don't know how many people know about the ATD conferences in the US. And I was asked to speak. And they came back to me, oh, by the way, do you have a book to go in our bookstores? We want our authors to be in the bookstore. Of course, I didn't say to them, oh, and I'm working on it. I mean, I had other books, but specific to that conference, I needed my podcast book. So, of course, when they asked me, I didn't say, oh, it's not yet finished. Oh, yes, I do. Say yes now and figure it out later. Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
So I knew I had content. And because I'd said yes, there was no backing down from this now. I had to get my butt off the floor and just get it done. And so I pulled my blog and pulled these things and all the different resources I had. So I didn't do a lot of writing from scratch. I do a lot of editing and stuff, but a lot of the content I had before. And so I presented that when I went, it was February, I think it was, in San Jose.
Oh, you managed to get it in before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, because I went and did yes, because the conference, so I went in the US in February, and I stayed on the latter part of February, I think it was, and I stayed until sometime in March because I had 2 events to speak at in March, and I had the one in San Jose from ATD in February. So I got it done, sister, got it done. And I had my book in the bookstore, Podcast Power, the Quick Start Guide to Launching and Leveling Up Your Brand. It was there.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, you're
Yes.
probably familiar with the term Parkinson's law, but we allow ourselves, we'll finish a job in the time that we allow ourselves to do it.
Exactly. Time expand to tasks expand to the time allotted to them. It is true, because I had a whole lifetime to do the book, but not until I was asked, oh, do you have a book? And I had to say yes. I got it done in record time.
But as you said, you got the material together. It was a case of pulling things from here, there, and everywhere.
Pulling here.
And
I mean, there are some
repurposing.
new chapters, right? There are some new chapters that I fresh content, but I had stuff I could work. I had a base to start with.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things, the joys about podcasting is that you can repurpose that information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So that was your writing journey. I want to think about your speaking journey as well. Now, you've mentioned you had these big events in the US in 2020. Take us back. Did you, I mean, the reason I'm asking this is because as a Brit, we did not have the experience of expectation of doing presentations at school. But I know that's part of the US and the Canadian curriculum. Was that something that you had to do in school as well?
Listen, no, the only thing we knew of speaking in school, except writing your essays, and you were never asked to present them. I think more when you were at sixth form,
Okay.
Right, when you're preparing for A-levels, the teacher will call you to the front and ask you to do a little presentation.
Okay, can I stop you for a second? For those of you who are not familiar with the British system, which is also in Jamaica, sixth form, we're talking about year 11, 12. So
yes, 12 and 13.
Between 16 and 18, basically.
Yes. Exactly. So, so predominantly no. So speaking in high school was more about if you join a debating club. I was never on the team, but I was in the club. And so, because there's just so many shy, like I never saw myself, though it's funny, let me rephrase that. So I knew that I wanted to be on stage, but I just didn't know that it was going to happen because I was a shy girl, no self-esteem, no confidence. How am I going to do that? But it's funny, I started seeing myself in a couple of years ago, I started calling myself an international speaker. Right? And I'm an international speaker, and I'm an international speaker. I've spoken not just virtually internationally, but traveling to speak in the Caribbean, outside of Jamaica, in the US, and so on. So I started doing that. And also, so that was public speaking for me in terms of my introduction to it. And then there's also Toastmasters. Like, I don't know how many of us are familiar with Toastmasters. It should be one of the best organizations if you want to be a speaker. I still have not finished my first 10 speeches in Toastmasters, but just like it took me 20 years to finish my writing course out of the UK with the Writers Bureau. If it takes, I am going to finish my Toastmasters. I'm going back to Toastmasters. I'm just going to have to. The thing
is, I mean, Toastmasters are a great opportunity for you to practice.
Exactly.
Depending on the group, the club you're in, you get feedback at different levels. It depends on the people concerned because they're not professionals.
No.
They're other people practicing as well.
Right.
So right. But I mean, do go through the program. It's very handy to get yourself lots and lots of practice.
And of course, connecting with other speakers as well. Yeah. That's what I do. And have done, I remember doing my first speaking course that I did. We have what is called the CPTC, the Creative Production and Training Center in Jamaica. I think they're now under a different name, but back then it was all about CPTC, and I did my my public speaking course. First stint at doing a formal public speaking anything was with the CPTC. Several years ago. And it really did encourage me, because a lot of persons will say to me from a long time, you have a radio voice, you have a lovely voice, and I would embrace it because I knew it to be true. I believe so myself. I'm not one of those persons who think my voice is horrible. I believe my voice is actually quite good, and I love it.
Good for you.
Yes, yes.
Well, one of the things with voices, particularly the first time you hear it recorded, I'm going to get a bit technical for a second. This is my speech pathology background. The reason that it sounds different to you, audience, if you've not experienced this so far, listen up. When you listen to yourself on a recording, you're hearing the sound waves only. When you hear yourself speaking, you are getting the bone vibrations into your ear, as well as the air conduction, bone conduction, air conduction. So it is going to sound different because you are experiencing it differently. Everybody else doesn't have the joy of this in-between bit. They're only hearing the airwaves. Get used to it because that's what other people are hearing and they love it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you. So this has been your wonderful speaking journey. And you're continuing to podcast. You're continuing to travel and speak on public stages. Love it.
Yes.
What have you got coming up next year? Have you got any gigs lined up for next year?
Well, next year for sure, I know what's happening is my own event because I'm a convener of leadership events as well, which I didn't mention before. What could I not? So let me give you examples of the magnitude of what we're talking about. So there is LeaderCast is the largest one-day event globally, and it is leadership event globally, and it is based in the US. It is formerly a John Maxwell owned event. Of course, he sold it when he was going into retirement. Came out of retirement to do Live to Lead, right? Go figure. So
I don't think that man will retire until he hits the button.
No. In fact, I'm just coming back from the cruise. I'm coming back from with the John Maxwell Live to Lead conference on the cruise there. Right. So there is that. So I started doing those events, streaming. So before in Jamaica, we are usually 10 years behind the technology. So there is we don't catch up as quickly, right? And so I bought into it. I started doing streaming into Kingston, Jamaica, the LeaderCast events that were happening in the US, in hotels, having a beautiful, like I've had 4 beautiful events, LeaderCast events. I'm super grateful. And then last year as well, and I have to speak on my own stage. And last year I did a major leadership event with a corporate entity in Jamaica, the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And that was beautiful as well. I was also a speaker on that stage. And my own event, which is coming up in November 2025, is the Lead Her Ship Conference Cruise. Lead Her Ship Conference. Love it. So that's major. And, we're leaving from Fort Lauderdale. We're going to Coco Cay, then Nassau, then back to Fort Lauderdale. So it is going to be an amazing time that we're going to be having. So that's what I have planned. I'm doing a lot of speaking on podcast stages coming up next year because of, of the direction that I want to go.
Interrupt you for a second. For the benefit of the audience who don't know about these themed cruises, can you give us a bit more of an indication of what happens? It's not simply a case of, oh, we're going off to somewhere nice and let's enjoy the sea while we're at it, is it? Give us more information.
I'm glad you asked. So let's put it into context. Many of us, myself included, we like to have a good time. But I think we find ourselves as entrepreneurs having that good time in the space of a business networking event, or, you go to a conference because we're spending so much time on personal development. It feels like we're just drawn to that. And hardly much time is there for entertainment on its own, right? So you get the best of both worlds when you do a conference cruise. I mean, there are a multiplicity of things that can be done on the ship. To this day, I went on the Allure of the Seas for my first cruise ever in October. And it has 16 decks. And I kid you not, for the 4 days we were there, I have not gone through all the activities of the ship. Like, I needed way more time to explore, right? So picture you having all of that. You get up when you want, you eat when you want, you do whatever you want, you have entertainment 24/7. It's just a dream come true. Picture now you factoring in that, developing your mind, developing your spirit, developing your soul, your heart, as you are learning new concepts, as you are being put in a space with like-hearted people, with like-minded people. You're in that space, you're sharing a meal, you're sharing the excitement, you're sharing the beach, you're sharing an ocean view, you're sharing, oh my gosh, it is like heaven on earth. I kid you not. So I am curating one of those for, as I mentioned, November 2025. And if you want to be a part of it, I mean, we have some early bird things coming. If you want to be a part of it, reach out to Wendy, reach out to myself. I know the contact information is going to be given at the end of this conversation. So if you're an explorer, if you want to have a good time while developing your mind, hello, look no further. Lead Her Ship Cruise, Conference Cruise 2025.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that, Heneka. I'll snip in for a second. Audience, if you don't know my work already, we have dynamic podcast notes, by which I mean when the guests let me know they've got something new coming up, I go back in and change the show notes and then do a quick socials blast to go, do you remember that brilliant conversation I had with Heneka? Well, she's got something new out. Go back and check the wonderful conversation we had. On the show notes, there's a change in the links. Go back and check those. So that's the way I work. So we'll make sure that, do you have a link already? Because you do, because you've got your early bird stuff.
Yes. I have a link there going. It's a Google form that you sign up, but I also have the details that I can blast out quickly to you. So
those notes, that link will be in the show notes, guys. Go check it out, because it sounds like
I love that idea. By the way, Wendy, sorry to interrupt you, but I love that idea. And I think I may steal it for my podcast. Just tell my guests, hey, if you have anything new, let me know. That is fabulous. That's fantastic. Come.
Well, the point is, thank you. You're leveraging the experiences you've already had. And it's a way of keeping up with the podcast host that you've been on their show.
Yes.
You're keeping that connection going. You then get to extra visibility.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Isn't it?
I like it. I love it a lot. Kudos.
So that's where we go. So we've looked at your speaker journey. We've looked at your writing journey. Your podcast book was out in 2019.
2020, yeah.
Sorry, 2020, sorry. I'm going to ask you, do you have anything else percolating at the moment for publication?
Okay, so what is always on the percolator? There's always a podcast coaching going on, and there's always podcast production opportunities. So I suspect you have some persons or you lovely audience members listening right now, and you're thinking, I'd love to start a podcast. But guess what? I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I just can't be bothered with that. I just want to show up, have a good conversation, like Wendy and I are having a great conversation now. That's what I want to do. Then I'm your girl. Reach out to me, Heneka at HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, and let us discuss how I might serve you in that way, because that's what I'm here for. I am here to take the stress away from you. I get it. You don't want to do the administrative stuff. You don't want to be doing show notes. You don't want to be doing all of those things that are necessary. That's why I'm here.
Heneka is your girl Friday.
I am.
Beautiful. Okay. And anything on the author front percolating?
All is my journaling. That's it. I've decided that I'm not going to write another book in the foreseeable future. In fact, I had a memoir. I have the outline and the book proposal for a memoir. I am pausing that. I was going to publish it. It was the thing I did for my, eventually finish it for my 20, the course that took me 20 years. I started it, eventually finished it and submitted it. But I am not going to be writing another book for now. I don't see in the foreseeable future. I plan to work all the ones that I've already written for all their worth. And I'm going to be putting in some marketing effort behind them because I have not been doing confession. I've not been doing a lot of that. And I
Sure.
want to really push the podcast production, the podcast for a lot more than I've done.
Yeah, got it. Just a little seed to throw in. You've mentioned a couple of times your age. What about doing a Golden Jubilee memoir when you hit 50?
You're planting a seed, right? You're just you love to plant. You're a farmer or something?
Just thinking about it, collecting your 50 years of wisdom. I'll leave that with you to percolate.
Yeah, let it sink for a moment. Let it, yeah.
I love planting. Farmer of all sorts of ideas. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now, you've got your written stuff, you do a lot of podcasting. How do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
So I've had a lot of experience, and the first book I wrote is called 15 Hints to Entrepreneurial Success, Lessons from a Caribbean Businesswoman. And my story is
that one.
Yeah. This is actually my was it my sixth? It's something. I don't remember what number book this one was.
I'll interrupt you for a second. Heneka, can we have your Amazon author page?
Oh, yeah, it's Heneka Watkis-Porter.
Give me that.
I'll give that to you.
We'll put that in the show notes. So audience, you can go in and you can check out all of Heneka's wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, right. So 15 Hints to Entrepreneurial Success, Lessons from a Caribbean Businesswoman. What I did in that one, I started it out the preface. Although it was about entrepreneurship, I really think it's always important to share my journey, regardless of what I'm talking about. So even if I'm talking about podcasting and tech and so on, I will talk about how did I get here, and I talk about the drama of my life, right? Sometimes the dark side of my life, the side that went through sexual abuse, the side that went through anxiety and depression, the side that did not grow up in a way that was child friendly, right? So there is that. So when you talk about adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, I don't know how many of your listeners are familiar with ACEs, but yeah, I've had a lot of adverse childhood trauma experiences. And I've always tried to incorporate that in my story wherever I'm speaking as much as I can. Even in my other parts of my life's work. For example, I run a mentorship program. It's a social enterprise, and it's called Grace to Grow Mentorship and Training.
Yes.
And in that program, it's all about my using, because I soon come back to finish that thought, but doing podcasting and doing the tech and doing that part of what I do, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to show my core.
Yeah.
And my core, really, at the core of who I am, I'm a giver, I'm a server, I am a motivator, I'm an inspirational leader. I'm going to inspire and motivate the pants off your bottom, right? I'm going to do it because that's who I am. But my day-to-day vocation doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. So when I do a Grace to Grow, when I do my mentorship program, yes, I'm mentoring them in the areas of entrepreneurship, parenting, time management, all of those lovely stuff. But I'm also taking them through understanding who they are, recognizing their identity. Who am I? Yeah. Whether or not they believe in a creator, whoever they believe in, whatever they believe, why were you created? What are you here for? So we get into things like that. So when I have conversations, my conversations are centered around that. And that is who I am. And the truth is, sometimes I marvel at my own self because I see me posting day to day on social media, and I'm always posting my experiences. Yes, I went on this cruise. Yes, I do that. Yes, I do that. But I keep reflecting on, the core of who I am. You don't see me posting that every day. Yeah. But because I find that it's so real and natural that I don't even need to post about it. You know what I mean? The going here and the going there, those are the things that are exception. The rule for me is who I am at the core, which I am a firm believer in God. I am a woman of faith. I am all about supporting and nurturing other women, and particularly those who feel like they don't have the resources. They feel despondent. They don't know the next move. They're crippled. They're disempowered, disenfranchised. For me, it's about empowering them and lifting them out of the rut that they've in, because I have been through so many dark circumstances of my life, and it is said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And
Yes,
so
exactly.
that's who I am.
Picking up on your point, our experiences have shaped us. It's
Mhm.
now up to us whether we let them define us or whether it's purely the shaping. And as you say, much was experienced, much will be required from you. What are you going to do with that experience, those experiences that you've had that have shaped you? What are you going to do and passing those on? Yeah, love it. Heneka, as we're winding up, are there any final words you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'd like to share that wherever the season you are in your life right now, I want you to embrace it. I find for me, there are times this season of my life I'm in the most joyful, rewarding season of my life. And for some, they can misunderstand it to mean something else,
Yeah.
But I want to encourage you, wherever you are in your life right now, stop, reflect. If you don't like what it is that is happening to you, you have the power to change it. You have the power to transform your life. And you may be in some situations and even being around people who will put you down, make you feel unworthy, whatever. What is going to be that thing that grounds you? Find that thing that grounds you, that regardless of what others say, regardless of what others do, you know who you are, and you know the boundaries that others will not cross. You know what it is that you will take, will accept, and the things that you must reject. I was listening to Shonda Rhimes this morning on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. And when she was talking about her year of yes, and I thought, wow, this year for me has been a year of many yes. I have shifted my mindset, and particularly around money. I have shifted my mindset around money, seeing it not just as money, but as currency. Because I started to do some development introspection courses and stuff. And seeing money as currency for me this year, that has been a soul shifting game changer for me, because excuse me, I have done some things this year. Had I had the previous mindset I had on money, I was like, no, I can't afford this. I need to save this money. I can't spend it doing that. No, I invested in going to a very expensive retreat overseas earlier this year. I invested the money on a course in the latter part of 2022 or 23. I've invested money on going in a conference cruise, and there's so many other things that I've done, like in another setting. And no, I can't afford this. I need this money for rainy day. Da, da, da. Nah. And boy, it has paid dividend. I can tell you that.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that, because as you say, that the way we think, what I call internal scripts, that the stories we're telling ourselves, they are fundamental to our belief system, and everything stacks on top of that. So when we make a decision to change that and stick to it regularly, as you were saying about the boundaries, and go, hang on, no, that was then, this is now, and keep being conscious of it, what a change can happen. My life with 20 kilos, you're looking at an ex-hoarder. I have 20 kilos. My life is in my traveling bag, my case. I don't have a home base anymore. I am of no fixed abode. If you told me this time last year, I would not have believed you. The shift, as you've just explained, is so powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, Heneka.
Namaste.
Thank you for sharing your from page to stage.
Oh, I'm so happy. You're welcome. I'm so happy to have been here to share, and just want to remind your audience and listen, start that podcast, whatever it is you want to talk about. there's a podcast for that. The world is waiting for you to share your story, share your voice. You have a voice, it's powerful. Share it.
Absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. From us, bye for now.
Bye-bye.